Thank you. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Greetings. My name is Clint, C-L-I-N-T. My last name is Seltzner, S-E-L-T-Z-N-E-R.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a detective for the Dane County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a detective?
Since August of 2015.
Were you yourself involved in the investigation into the homicides of Bart and Krista Haldersons, specifically into the search of their home on Oak Springs?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity were you involved in that search?
I was just one of the detectives assigned to help search.
And particularly, did you end up searching Chandler Halderson's bedroom?
Yes, I did.
What gave you the impression that that was Chandler's bedroom?
The pictures on the wall, the size of the clothes, documents, things like that.
Sure. When you searched the bedroom, were you searching for any items in particular, or were you just looking through and seeing what you could find?
I think at that point we were just looking for anything we thought that could be related to the case.
And were cell phones an important item for you to look for at that time?
Yes, they were.
That was included in the search warrant of things that you could take from the Halderson home?
Yes, it was.
I'm going to show you a couple photographs. Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 469. What is that a photograph of?
I see Apple iPhones, an iPod, I believe, and then there's also a black and silver Apple iPhone.
Okay, and I'm showing you 470 has some of those items pulled out, correct?
Yes.
There were numerous phones in Chandler Halderson's bedroom that were seized as evidence.
Yes, there were.
Were these photographs of those phones in those general areas?
Yes, they were. This is an Alcatel flip phone.
Sure. So at least were these all found in the same general vicinity?
Yeah, these phones were found, the Apple iPhone was found in a desk drawer, and where you would put your legs underneath the workspace, there's that fold-out drawer where typically pens and things like that are found. That's where that was. The Alcatel phone was found in the bottom drawer.
Okay, same desk?
Same desk.
Okay, so a couple different phones, and then just some general USBs, normal office stuff in there, correct?
That's right.
All right, I'll move 469 and 470 to evidence.
No objection.
They are received.
And then before I publish, did you find any ammunition or ammunition cans in the bedroom?
Yes, I did.
Whereabouts was an ammunition can found?
The ammunition can was found in the closet on the right-hand side on the floor.
Showing it's been marked as exhibit number 471. Is that the ammunition can?
Yes, it is.
And is that kind of where it was found?
It was in the closet. I can't really see it from the context.
Things are moved around here to take a photograph at the top.
Yeah, that's the ammo can.
All right, so 471 moved.
Any objection to the receipt of 471?
No objection.
It is received.
All right, I'll move to publish.
These items should show up on the computer monitor, Detective.
Oh.
And we're just going to show them here because there's not many, and the detail perhaps isn't as important as some, but is that the ammunition can there in the center of 471?
Yes, sir.
And you said that was in Mr. Halderson's closet?
Yes, it was.
469, is that a photograph of the top drawer of that desk?
It looks like it, yes.
And we have some phones that became relevant that you ended up seizing?
Yes.
And other just general debris. And then if we look at 470, is that laid out all the phones that were collected from that desk?
Yes.
And then obviously there's just appears to be some normal office things, but we have a flip phone kind of in the center right, and then appears to be two iPhones.
I believe one was an iPod.
iPod and an iPhone.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And all those items were seized?
Yes.
Okay. Were any gloves found in Mr. Halderson's bedroom?
Detective Liz Allen located a glove in the drawer of his nightstand. That was a black glove. And then I found a box of Walgreens exam-style gloves in a container or box underneath the bed.
Sure. Exam-style gloves, the gloves that we've maybe been wearing in court, the plastic gloves or latex gloves?
Right.
Okay. And did you seize that box of gloves?
Yes, we did.
I'm showing it's been marked as we don't have to open it. 474, is that in fact the box of gloves that you seized that day?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I'll move 474 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
That box of gloves, had it been opened and had some taken out, or do you recall?
I can't remember for certain.
Sure. And those phones that we previously talked about, one flip phone and one iPhone found in the drawer, were those seized by yourself, or others involved in the search of his bedroom?
We were seized, yeah, but they were seized by detectives, yes.
Sure. Showing exhibit number 567, does that appear to be the Apple iPhone?
Yes, it does.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 473. This is just labeled as what?
Labeled as cell phone.
Okay. And in fact, we're going to open these. So we'll have one of the detectives bring up, don't think there's any scissors up here, so we'll have them bring something up to open those.
Thank you.
Did we move those two into evidence? Or you have to, are you moving based on on testimony regarding the labels?
We'll open them up first.
Or after, okay. What were the numbers?
So we'll start with 473, labeled as cell phone. If you want to open that up for us. What do we got there?
This is an Alcatel flip phone.
Okay. And you're not here to tell us what's on the phone, but it's a flip phone.
Yes.
And consistent with what you seized in Mr. Halderson's room in his desk drawer.
Yes, it is.
All right, I'll move 473 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
All right, same thing. We'll look at this one, labeled in this case 567. If you could open that up, let us know what we're looking at. What do we got there?
This is a black and silver Apple iPhone.
And was that the phone found in the top desk drawer in Chandler Halderson's bedroom?
Yes, it was.
All right. Take that back, and I will move 567 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And we don't go too quick or too far here. While we're here, these are the gloves I think we already talked about. It's 474 moved into evidence. If you could just open those up so everyone can take a look. And is that box of gloves open?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what's it labeled?
Nitrile exam gloves
Okay, from Walgreens?
from Walgreens.
All right, we can place it back in the bag. Thank you. We have one more to look at. Was that ammunition can and all the ammunition collected?
Yes, it was.
That box, I'll sit exhibit number 475 down. Does that appear to be the ammunition that was collected from Mr. Halderson's bedroom?
Yes, it does. Yes, it is.
All right. And is it appropriately marked with an exhibit sticker as well as a Dane County Sheriff's evidence sticker?
I recognize that evidence ID number and the sticker.
All right, I'd move 475.
No objection.
It is received.
And if you could just open it up so we can take a look at it. And what I'm going to have you do is just pull that out, if you could. And hold up so the jury can see the stenciled side of that. It says 7.62 by 39. Is that full of ammunition right now?
Yes, it is.
It's very heavy, isn't it?
Feels like it.
Okay, we'll put it back. Just looking for a place to sit this one. Regarding those phones that we talked about that were seized, you're not the person who does the analysis of those phones, right?
No, I'm not.
You took them, they got put in the bag, they put in evidence, and that's what you're testifying to?
Yes.
All right, no further questions.
Cross?
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused?
He may be excused, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Remainder of your day.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your first and last name and spell both for the record?
I am Alex Gravatt, Alex Gravatt.
Mr. Gravatt, do you know somebody by the name of Chandler Halderson?
I do know Chandler Halderson.
And how do you know Mr. Halderson?
We were childhood friends and roommates.
Okay. I'd ask that you look around the courtroom. The judge will give instructions in just a second, and tell me whether or not you see Mr. Halderson.
And before the witness does so, would everybody not in the jury box lower their mask for a moment so that he can see everyone's faces? Thank you. You can replace your masks. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I see Chandler Halderson.
Could you please identify him by perhaps where he's located and perhaps the color of his shirt?
He is wearing a black suit with a white shirt next to somebody wearing green.
All right. I'd ask the record to reflect that the witness has identified Mr. Halderson.
It shall.
Mr. Gravatt, did you ever go swimming in the Wisconsin River with Mr. Halderson?
Yes, a handful of times.
Okay, and where did you guys go? Could you describe the location?
We had two spots, one next to a local park in Saukville, and then one kind of down the road across a bridge, and we had to go into a cul-de-sac and then down a winding path through a little prairie to a beach.
And that second location you described, how many times do you think you went there with Mr. Halderson?
Me personally, 2 or 3. I know that they went, he and a few of my other friends went more times without me.
Was it your understanding that Mr. Halderson knew how to scuba dive?
Yes.
What did you know about his scuba diving?
Well, I knew in high school he was a diver, but then he loved to swim, and from my understanding, he joined the Madison police diving team for search and rescue missions. I know he'd gone a few times with them, to my knowledge, but I never went with him or dropped him off or saw anything too much.
Did he
like
ever tell you about any of his search and rescue missions?
Yes, he told me a couple of times about getting caught in riptides, and one time he said that he saw a body while doing it, while scuba diving, and that he was a little weirded out by that.
Okay. Did he ever bring home any mementos or anything he found while scuba diving?
Yes, I know there was one time he brought home a large pink sex toy that he found, and then there was one time I believe he brought home like an old rusty looking knife.
And were these from his scuba diving missions with the Madison Police Department? Was that your understanding?
I believe so.
Okay. No further questions.
Any cross-examination?
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused and released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Have a
Thank
good
you.
remainder of your day. Thank you.
Dakota Brown, Dakotah Brown.
And do you know someone by the name of Chandler Halderson?
Yes,
How do you know Mr. Halderson?
I was in a relationship with him for 1 year.
Okay. And I'd ask that, the judge will give instructions in a minute, but I'd ask that you look around the courtroom, see if you see Mr. Halderson, and then identify him by where he's seated and perhaps the color of his shirt.
I'll ask everyone not in the jury box to lower their mask for a brief moment. Thank you. You could return your masks. Were you able to see Mr. Halderson?
Yes, white shirt, black tie. blue mask.
And is he seated at a table?
Yes.
I'd ask the record to reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
It shall.
Now, Ms. Brown, did you ever go swimming with Mr. Halderson in the Wisconsin River?
Yes.
Where did you guys go?
We went to Sauk City to a beach area on the river, right on the riverbank.
Okay. And was that a place that, to your understanding, Chandler swam a lot?
No, we found it one day as a group, us and our friends, and we all went together for the first time.
Okay. And what year was that? Do you remember?
2020.
I'm going to show you what has been marked and received as exhibits 123 and 124. Do you recognize either or both of those photos?
Yes, both.
How do you recognize them?
Chandler sent them to me.
And do you know anything about where these were taken or any of the circumstances surrounding?
He just said a beach day in Sauk City with the boys.
Okay. And just quickly, Your Honor, if I could have the Elmo. And these are pictures that the jury has already seen, but I just want to show them what we were talking about, 123 and 124. And you provided those photos to police in connection with this investigation, is that fair?
Yes.
Ms. Brown, what, if anything, do you know about Chandler's scuba diving career?
I don't know anything other than he told me that he has gone diving, that he was certified, and that he had a job diving.
And did he say what department he dived with?
For the Madison Police Department.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused and released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Have a good remainder of your day. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right.
Yeah, good afternoon. Could you please state and spell your name?
Paige Valenta, P-A-I-G-E, Valenta, V-A-L-E-N-T-A,
And how are you employed?
with the City of Madison Police Department.
In what role?
I'm the Assistant Chief of Operations.
Sure. In the realm of ranks of police officers, you're at near the very top.
I report directly to the chief.
Okay. I asked you a couple of questions in this case, which is why you're testifying, but does the Madison Police have a scuba diving rescue team?
No,
Has someone named Chandler Halderson ever been employed by the Madison Police to your knowledge?
no.
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused and released.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Have a good remainder of your day.
Detective, we've heard from you a couple of times. Due to some things you've done in this investigation, be fair to say that there was a large team of people responsible for determining what actions were taken, what steps to take next in the investigation, or was it just you or just Sabrina Sims?
No, Detective Sims and I were the lead detectives, but we had a lot of help.
Sure. We have seen a lot of evidence in this case, both at all the crime scenes. Was it important to you to see if any of those items were connected to other crime scenes in this case?
Yes, definitely.
Why was that important?
It was important. We found tools out at the farm, obviously. We knew that there were items in the Halderson household that had been located. Trying to figure out how they were placed in the different locations, I guess. So the tools out at the farm, if there was anything that we could do to determine whether they had a tie directly to the Halderson family or the Halderson household was important.
And were there some steps taken in this investigation to try to make those determinations?
Definitely.
Some of them involved just seeing things and some involved expert witnesses?
Correct.
All right. Let's start with one item we've talked about a lot. It's marked, I'll show the defense real quick. It's the target bag. It's marked as exhibit 561 in this case. What is exhibit number 561?
That's going to be the target bag filled with rags and cleaning supplies that Detective Feeney found on Irwin Road.
And these were the rags with the red stain on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And they were securely placed in evidence, and this has been sitting in the Dane County Sheriff's Office evidence for since they were collected and up until court?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move 561 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
those items, or at least that bag, had a sticker on it with a name, right?
Yes.
And what name was that?
It was C. Melander.
Okay. And in the course of the investigation, did you have an idea of where that bag was last known to be?
Yes, we had found several bags similar with the same barcode, with the same name on it at the Halderson residence.
Okay. So that's an example of one item found at the Irwin Road property connecting to the Halderson residence.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the gun. There was a gun found at the Irwin Road barn,
Correct.
and that was in October.
I believe it was October, yes.
Were there any items in the home that drew your suspicion or that you wanted to examine whether those items were in some way connected to that gun?
Yes, during the search of the Halderson home, 3 magazines were located that were consistent with magazines that would fit into the SKS rifle found on Irwin Road. We had also located a spent shell casing, or a fired shell casing, another way of saying it, in the home.
Okay. Was there anything else located in the home that led you to believe that that gun was fired there?
There was metal fragments located on the north side of the basement.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the, let's start with the shell casing itself, or the spent casing. Is that brass hollow bullet that everyone's seen?
Yes.
Why is that important to the investigation, or what drew your investigatory interest into that object?
Not normal to have a spent shell casing in a basement, especially within the proximity to the bullet fragments that were located nearby. At that point, we had already known that Bart Halderson had died of bullet wounds to the back. So obviously, tying all that together, made it more interesting.
Did the team engage an expert to try to analyze whether that gun fired, the spent shell casing, fired that bullet?
Yes, and we'll hear from that expert.
Today, in fact, right?
Today, in fact, yes.
The gun, you mentioned that the magazines found in the wall, you believe matched the SKS rifle found at the barn?
They do.
And are you familiar with this gun?
I am.
How familiar are you with this gun?
I would say very. I'm a firearms instructor and have quite a bit of experience with the SKS.
Okay. And was there any other gun found at the Halderson house that would have fit those magazines?
No.
Okay. In fact, were there any other firearms recovered at the Halderson house? Actual firearms?
Not a real firearm.
Okay. There were some airsoft guns or things like that?
Correct, under Chandler's bed.
Okay. You used the phrase metal fragments, and I think you maybe used it a different way. Did you have a suspicion of what those metal fragments were?
Yes, they appear to be bullet fragments.
What leads you to believe that?
The consistency, like I said, being a firearms instructor, I've seen plenty of bullet fragments laying around on the range. I've been involved with numerous death investigations, which included firearm trauma. Finding these similar bullet fragments around. We also had photographs from the medical examiner's office that had these similar metal fragments, bullet fragments inside Mr. Halderson's torso.
Relative to the size of what the actual bullet is in this gun that you say you're familiar with, how were these fragments big, small, a large portion of the bullet, a small portion of the bullet? What would you say?
I would say small. The bullet's fragmented pretty widely.
Okay. And fragmented just means shattered?
Broke into several pieces.
Okay. This bullet fragment was photographed, correct?
Correct.
And I think we've seen some of the photographs. We have another one I've marked 557, just because we're going to talk about it. What's 557?
557 is the bullet fragment that was located on the north side of the basement in the Halderson home.
And the jury's seen this picture, but this is zoomed in, is it?
This is zoomed in, correct.
Okay. And who performed that work?
Deputy Scott Kuntz.
Who we heard from for about 4 hours the other day?
Quite a while.
Okay. I'll move 557 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
In the zoomed in version of 557, was anything drawing your attention when you saw this zoomed in or when you looked at this closely before it was washed by the crime lab?
Yeah, several things drew my attention. First, it appears to be the inner portion of the bullet, the projectile of a round. I didn't see any of the brass or copper casing that would be on the outside of it. I also observed quite a bit of reddish-brown staining. It's not the best in this picture on the Elmo, but it's visibly there.
And when you say the staining, are we, and I'll use my pen, are you talking about this area?
Yes, there's splatters all over.
Okay. And we heard about the DNA analyst who said that this was washed essentially and tested?
Correct.
Okay. You talked a little bit about not seeing any of the brass or the casing. Some people are more familiar with firearms than others. What do you mean by that?
So around the lead portion of a bullet would be some type of a casing, whether it be copper, most common. It just kind of holds the lead intact until it were to hit an object and expand. Typically, you know, the copper will break away from the lead portion. Sometimes you can recover it, sometimes you cannot. This appears just to be the inner portion of that bullet.
Got it. You didn't see any of that casing?
I did not.
Okay. So when we talk about connections between Oak Springs and Irwin Road, you said that you had the spent casing tested for ballistics?
Correct.
Was the ammunition that was found in Mr. Halderson's bedroom, that big box that Mr. Seltzner just held up, was that consistent with ammunition that would be fired out of that gun that was found out at the barn?
Yes, the SKS is a 7.62 by 39 caliber. And that was what the ammunition was that was located.
And obviously, as the case detective in this case, you've looked at the other pieces of ammunition, including that bullet given to Mitchell Halderson that said "get well." Are all of those consistent with ammunition that could be fired out of that SKS rifle found out at the barn?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about other items where we're talking about connections. Was there on Bart Halderson's torso, was there any sort of rope?
Yes, when Bart's torso was located, there was a section of rope that was wrapped around his waist.
Sure. And I think everyone's seen that enough, but it was around the waist of Mr. Halderson?
Correct.
Was it tied into a knot?
If I recall, yes.
Okay. Was a similar style or colored rope found at the Halderson house in the search of the garage?
Yes, it was located in a basket in a garage.
And I think we already saw 210, but is that some black rope there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Was a cutting of the rope found in the garage and then the rope found around Mr. Halderson's torso, was that sent out to the crime lab?
We did send it out for a fracture match.
Sure. Fracture match, meaning can someone actually say it's the exact same?
Whether they were once joined together.
Okay. The rope that was around Mr. Halderson's torso, we haven't seen it in court. Was it collected by the police?
Yes, we did collect it and we have it in evidence.
Why isn't it here?
The rope is double bagged due to the level of decomposition on the torso. It just wouldn't be appropriate to bring it into a closed setting such as this.
Is it refrigerated?
Yeah, I don't recall.
Okay. Is there a smell to it?
Definitely.
Okay. In talking about other connections maybe present between the farm and the house, let's talk about some of the tools. There was what's been described as a keyhole saw, a hand saw found in an oil tank. I think we've all seen the photographs near Mr. Halderson's body. Was that tool collected?
The always saw was collected. All the tools inside that fuel drum were collected.
And you just said the brand name Alway.
Correct.
Had you ever heard of this brand name before this case?
I had not.
Did it stick out to you for any particular reason?
It appeared to be a very old saw. We actually performed a Google search on it, and it was an antique saw.
Okay. Is it a brand that you normally see yourself?
I have never seen one before.
Showing you what's been received into evidence is exhibit number 221. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Where was this photograph taken and where's it from?
This photograph was one of the lower drawers in the Craftsman toolbox inside the Halderson's garage.
Okay. So showing everyone 221. Where my finger is, that silver handle right there, is that a saw?
Yes.
And what brand is that?
That's also an always saw. The handle is a little bit different in design than the one we located out at Irwin Road. However, it's still the same name brand.
Okay. The other item that I think the anthropologist talked a lot about today was that broken hacksaw blade. You've seen that in the course of the investigation?
The bow saw blade, yes.
In fact, I think you're the one who held it up for the jury a couple days ago.
Unfortunately.
Might have been a week ago, actually.
Yeah.
I forgot we were gone for a little bit. Was there a frame, a bow saw frame found in the garage of the Halderson house that seemed consistent with to you, that a frame that would hold that blade?
Yes, there was, along the west wall behind some boards.
Behind some boards? Showing you 224, these are already received into evidence, and 225, is that frame?
Yes, it is.
I'll show these to the jury, so we're all looking at the same thing. And again, we've seen these all before, but 224, is that bow saw frame behind some boards?
Yes, it is.
And 225, that's maybe the end of the bow saw or where the frame or the blade attaches to the frame?
Correct. It's opposite of the handle side.
There's a little piece right there that's broken. Was that of interest to you?
Yes, it was. Knowing on Irwin Road that we had found the broken bow saw blade, we knew that there had to have been the other end that would attach to the saw somewhere. We also sent that portion along with the broken bow saw blade out for examination.
Okay. And someone to look at, see whether they matched or not?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll hear from that person today?
We will.
Okay. Let's talk about the tarps. A couple tarps found out at the Irwin Road property, one in the barn and one out by the torso, right?
Correct.
And so if we're remembering everything right from last week, Exhibit 174, this is a garbage can with a tarp in it,
Yes.
as it was essentially found with the tarp inside the garbage can.
Correct.
Is this the tarp that has some yellow tape on it?
Yes.
Okay. And then there is this big bag. I think the lab labeled it item S, but this is the barn tarp, right? This is labeled exhibit number 143.
That was the one found in the barn.
Okay. Let's start with the one in the garbage can. Did that tarp appear to be newer to you?
It did.
You've seen in this case the person from Fleet Farm testify about the tarp that Mr. Halderson purchased on July 2nd. You've seen in the crime lab measuring it. You've actually seen the tarp. Is that tarp consistent with the tarp that was purchased at Fleet Farm by Mr. Halderson on July 2nd?
Yes, it is.
In size and color?
Yes, the crime lab reported that the tarp was 6 foot by 8 foot. It's silver and black. I've seen that in pictures. And I know that the the Fleet Farm tarp was definitely of those dimensions and same color.
Was, in the search of the Halderson home, any other tarp collected at the house that would be consistent with that Fleet Farm
There
purchase
was
tarp?
not.
Okay.
No.
This tarp that we're talking about, there was some testing that was done on it, correct?
Yes.
Was there something called footwear testing done?
There was a footwear analysis, and we'll hear about that later also.
In general, what is that analysis?
They're able to determine if there's any footwear impressions on the piece, in this instance, the tarp. And then once they are able to identify whether there's footwear impressions on that tarp, they request, they're able to tell you what type of shoe they believe it is, and then they'll go on from there and can confirm whether or not a certain shoe made that impression. But like I said, we'll hear about that from an expert.
Okay. Same question with the tape. Was testing done on the tape, the yellow tape that was found on that tarp?
Yes.
Was that yellow tape of evidentiary interest to you as a detective in this case?
Yes, it was.
Why?
Several reasons. I know that we had located a roll of yellow duct tape in the south side section of the basement at the Halderson home. Also with tape, I know that fingerprints can be captured on there. From photos, I knew that there had been some red staining on the tape also, so possibly some DNA evidence.
It was an item of interest.
Of course.
Okay. Then briefly we'll talk about the barn tarp. In relationship to the tarp that's in the garbage can, is the barn tarp older or newer in your just general appearance?
It appeared older.
And in this case, were you able to discover any evidence that tarp had been used before?
Yes, we have several photographs of Bart Halderson in his garage making a table. on that, would appear to be that same tarp. It's a much larger tarp.
Okay. Less evidentiary interest because you thought maybe other people had been on this tarp before.
Yes.
Okay. Nonetheless, the testing was done and we looked into it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think we heard from the DNA analyst last week there was blood found on both of those tarps.
There was.
Okay. No further questions for now.
Cross-examination at this time.
Nothing now, thank you.
Thank you, Detective. You can return to the table.